Welcome back to this week's episode of Modern Tech and Transformation. My name is Carla Hartman, and I have with me again VP of Solution Architecture at Resolve Tech Solutions, Abdul Rahman Zafar. Thank you for being back.
Thank you for having me, Carla.
Well, excited to have you because we have a really interesting episode today. It's going to be tech by the numbers, so trends that are driving transformation. So to kick off this episode, we're going to talk about some interesting statistics from some of the leading market research firms like Gartner, Forrester, and IDC. The first interesting statistic that I'd like Abdul to weigh in on is that Forrester said only 27% of businesses have successful digital strategies. So there's 73% of businesses out there trying to transform and being unsuccessful. What would you say to them to get started, and what is your advice based on your years of experience and success?
A lot of times what we see is businesses fail to measure success. So they don't have value-driven outcomes. What that really means is we need to be able to understand how we actually deliver value and continue to monitor and watch for it. There are a couple of things that we need to begin with, and this is where we see a lot of that 70% that you just talked about. That's where the failures are coming from, because there's no coherent strategy around. And what that also means is understanding where are you today in terms of current state. Do we have the full visibility into our current state? I've gone into organizations where every department is running their own IT.
That can be problematic.
Absolutely. And then, top down, either it's digital transformation. Now we're seeing a lot more of AI-driven outcomes. And that all has to start from top down. And setting aside the right culture in place, the people, bringing the team together before we even start looking at technology.
So culture is step one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So culture to drive innovation, culture to drive digital transformation, culture to be very innovative. That's where we need to be. And then be able to measure success. So not just subscribing towards a vision, having the value associated with it. When we deliver something, we have to be able to measure and monitor, and then continue to refine strategy, because this is not something that's static. It's always going to be, we're going to continue to adapt. Prior to last year, we were talking about AI maturity across organizations. Now, we're actually with ChatGPT coming into the fore, we see AI taking this center stage into digital transformation, and that has to do with a lot of things in terms of technology, in terms of enhancing and upgrading, and also utilizing multiple infrastructure that is available to you. Either it's on-prem. We continue to see customers who are challenged to either go to the cloud because they cannot go fast enough, or there are barriers, and there are legitimate barriers to go into cloud too for some of these customers, and I can understand that. But at the same time, you cannot stop innovation. You have to be able to continue to drive towards new, and how do you incorporate that? It all comes from people, process, technology.
Good. So that's where you need to start. So if you're in that 73%, people, process, technology, and if you need the process and the people, that's where Resolve Tech Solutions comes in. So the next statistic is something I hadn't heard of yet. It talks about AI Trism. And Gartner predicts applying Trism controls will increase accuracy of decisions made by AI by eliminating 80% of illegitimate or faulty information. So Abdul, what is AI Trism? Let's start there.
Interesting that you bring that up. What is AI Trism? Or you can say it in so many different ways, but essentially all it means is it's the AI trust, risk and security management framework.
Okay.
That's what it is. So the framework supports AI model governance, trustworthiness. It supports fairness and reliability. It also supports efficacy and data protection. So everything that we need to have a solid foundation
Okay.
for delivering AI solutions.
So it all starts with the foundation. So that makes sense. If Gartner's predicting 80% of companies will be more successful if they build a good foundation, I think that's reasonable.
Absolutely. And the pillars of this foundation are explainability, model operations. Model operations plays a very vital role. It's not just about data science, it's not just about building a model, but operationalizing the model. Model engineering is a field on its own. I mean, we continue to hear about model operations, we continue to hear about the security, right? And how do we go about delivering this value? And then data privacy is also a big concern.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand that with the GPT models coming into taking the main stage, we're going to find a lot more focus on privacy and security. European Union is already ahead of the game. US is also bringing in legislation that would establish the best practices required for delivering AI-based solutions. As we continue to see, it is going to get very easy to identify a person from different disparate data sources. And that's a challenge that we have to all tackle. So one more thing that's very important is transparency in model building, being able to monitor and manage and continue to be able to not only just managing, but being able to explain what that model is supposed to do, what type of outcomes it's supposed to give you. So, and then utilizing that model into the overall business process is going to be the key in delivering value.
So yeah, after you explained that to just a simple business user like myself, that definitely makes sense, that statistic. I found it interesting and knew you'd have good insights on it.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the foundation, AI Trism, that's very important. To follow up on that, Gartner had another statistic, also 80%, that by 2026, 80% of software engineering organizations will establish platform teams as internal providers of reusable tools and resources. So once the foundation is developed, Abdul, first of all, do you agree with that 80%? And second of all, how can they start to utilize platform engineering with AI augmented development?
Interesting that you bring up that statistic. If you really look at the overall state of AI and in terms of development, the stacks are totally stacked against us or our customers. And here's the reason why. There is proliferation of tools and different technologies. There is always going to be, the next best thing that is going to come up. But it all we have to put emphasis on architectures. We have to, because as we continue to develop our solutions, we have to be able to build it in a way where the building blocks are pluggable. And that includes, application being API aware. That's absolutely critical. Because what we're going to see is, as we continue to drive towards new technologies and new frameworks, we have to be able to integrate with them. Not too long ago, we were all focused on batch data. Not too long ago, we were all focused on, let's say, big data, right? Now we're talking about having data as a product, having AI as a product, machine learning as a product. We are actually, the more we continue to drive towards a product mindset, the more we are going to continue to see maturity in architecture. So a recent stat, right? Not a recent stat, but there are a lot of leaders who are saying with AI maturity, we will no longer need coders. We will no longer need software engineers. And I kind of disagree with that. Being in the industry for over 20 years, I can tell you, we have seen that promise before. What it really means is, we will not require the degree of involvement in building software the way we do today now. I mean, we have seen 4GL languages deliver its value, and there was value, right? We have now Copilot that is actually going to help build a lot of code for you. We have generative AI that's actually going to take your legacy code and transform it, and build a modern architecture out of it, or get towards modern architecture. So we're going to see a lot of transformation. What that really means is the remaining 20% are not left behind. They can actually do something about it. They can begin to look at from the top-down architecture blueprint and continue to influence that architecture in a way where it's more pluggable. It's security first architecture. We have an AI first architecture. That way, the whole end-to-end blueprint can actually be more forward-looking.
Okay, that's good advice. Yeah, it's a good starting point. So I want to move on to some statistics around democratizing AI. We actually were just published in the Dallas Business Journal because we are democratizing AI for Dallas businesses. And this aligns with another one of Gartner's predictions. I know this has been very Gartner heavy, but we have a stat from IDC Next. So Gartner also predicts by 2026, more than 80% of enterprises will have used generative AI models. How is RTS democratizing these generative AI models so they're more accessible for all business uses?
So, Carla, you have a lot of statistics today.
I do.
And this is a very interesting one because we will continue to, and our clients are going to continue to hear a lot of noise around generative AI. It's not just noise, it's reality. The large language models, which generative AI belongs to, they're going to be a lot. There's going to be proliferation of these models. So how do you go about selecting the right model for the right use case? And that's very important. It's not just hammer and everything now begins to look like a nail. We have a lot of customers who are actually, they've done some POCs, and we need to be able to go from POC into production. And what that requires is a lot of other security concerns. So with generative AI, all of these concerns about responsible AI, ethical AI, they get elevated because now we're looking at content, who has access to what, and we need to make sure that we have guardrails around that. So we're helping our customers come up with solutions that we can take to production. And it's not as simple as let's use an API, but how do you secure your content? How do you have the right guardrails? How do you enable audit controls? And how do you actually filter out noise, right? There are security concerns, there are data privacy concerns, there are many concerns that we haven't really gone through end to end. But then again, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important to validate your assumptions and have an environment where you can actually go about do that rather quickly. So not too long ago, I had, an idea came to mind. How can we actually use a typical dialogue flow for GCP and utilize that for multimodal? That idea transpired into a more mature application. And we were able to do that rather quickly. Going from that quick POC into production, we realized that now we need to enhance our architecture. And this is the common theme that I'm going to continue to see and deliver because, again, going back to top leadership, and we have like top-down mandate where we continue to have an architecture principle in place that can deliver value. And that's where we need to be. And we are helping our customers not just from generative AI perspective, but also from AI in maturing AI so we can deliver value.
Yeah. So AI is not off the table for anyone. We can help make it happen and democratize it for all.
Absolutely.
So with that, IDC suggested there will be a rise in low-code, no-code tools to implement AI. Are there any tools that you've used so far that stand out above others for low-code, no-code AI development?
I have used some. I mean, I've used the Copilot, GitHub Copilot. It's really nice. I mean, as you continue to type away, you can get your best buddy give you the answer. You don't have to go Google. It's the best version of Google for coding. But at the same time, we're going to see that these tools are going to continue to evolve, right? It's good to stay ahead of the trend. It's good to know what's out there in the market and continue to experiment with new tools and technologies. But we also know that bringing these technologies into production is going to be challenging. So again, going back to our earlier stat with Prism, security is going to be the key for everything. As we continue to leverage a lot of open source, as we continue to leverage a lot of third-party libraries, we want to make sure that we can use them in a secure way. So low code, no code, obviously, I mean, that has been, it has delivered a lot of value, and we'll continue to see that. But at the same time, we're going to continue to see legacy applications get modernized rather quickly. So it's no longer a 6-month project, it's no longer a year-long project. It's actually a value delivered in a very short time.
Which is exciting. Last one for today, another IDC stat. They predict that 90% of new applications in enterprises will have AI integration. Have you seen any companies thus far do some cool stuff with AI integrations in their new applications that you can share with us?
So absolutely. AI first is going to be the key. Just like security first was the thing, right? So all of these architecture principles come together. And in terms of applications, we are seeing almost every single application infuse AI into their tools. Either it's Microsoft or Salesforce or ServiceNow, every single application is now giving you data and information at your fingertips. But we're going to see a maturity around that too. So looking forward to that maturity.
That's exciting.
Yep.
I'm excited for it. I mean, shopping's a lot easier. They just tell me what I need. I don't even have to decide what I need anymore.
Absolutely. So that's the next level.
Yeah. Thank you, Abdul. This has been a lot of fun. You had great insights, which I knew you would, based on modern market research. And I'm excited that Abdul will also be back on next week's episode to talk about overcoming AI failures.